The ballots for Green Bay's Common Council will be set after tomorrow's nonpartisan primary, and there will be a primary in 5 out of the 12 districts. Kristen Allen breaking down those primaries for us this morning, joining us live outside Green Bay City Hall, talking about District 9. Kristen, tell us about the candidates there.
Good morning, Emerson. District 9 is where there's going to be some significant change happening with Alderman and Council President Brian Johnson not running for re-election. There are 4 candidates in this race. District 9 covers the Tank Park area, the Shipyard District, Marquette Park, and the Western Corridor. Candidate Michael Brzezinski says he would like to focus on revitalizing and bringing green space to neighborhoods, while challenger Sly Chow says affordable housing is a priority.
The old rail yard there and everything else that's built, that's an area that's just been sitting vacant. It is adjacent to Broadway as well. And there's places that we can move just beyond the downtown district to move things out and get more people attracted to our neighborhood as well.
I think we have a housing crisis here. There's a lot of everyday Americans that cannot afford rents, cannot afford mortgage, or cannot find a place to live that's within their budget. So we have a lot of homeless people here in Green Bay too. I think that we need to take a look at our shelters here in town and see the gap that we're not meeting.
There are 2 other candidates in this race as well. Candidates Ben DeBaker and Tarleton Knight did not respond to interview requests. Votes will cast their ballots for one of the candidates in each race, and the top 2 vote getters will go on the April 7th ballot. And you can hear from more of the candidates for these 5 primaries by going to our website, WBAY.com. Reporting live in Green Bay, Kristen Allen, Action 2 News.